guys, this is Ruby from Mission MathMinds. Today I'm joined by Bryttie from Microsoft. Thank you so much for being here, Bryttie. Do you mind introducing yourself with your name and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ruby. So my name is Bryttie Kurtenbach. I am a client director at Microsoft, and I'll be happy to share a little bit about just my career journey at Microsoft, just how I got into technology, some lessons I've learned along the way. But one of the things that we did early on in my career at Microsoft was they walked us through an exercise of writing our mission. So I did want to share my mission with you because it's going to come up several times throughout the presentation, but my mission is to pursue excellence with enthusiasm while being an encouraging and empathetic leader. And so I like to call it my four E's. To have excellence, to really be enthusiastic and encouraging in my career, and also having empathy, right, for where people are at in their journey. And that's really just helped me throughout my career. And I'll speak to that a little bit more. But just kind of kicking off a little bit about myself. So I grew up in Nebraska, in Lincoln. So it's a semi-small town, much smaller than Chicago. I went to the University of Nebraska, and I always like to share the story that I knew I wanted to go into fashion at a young age, and I always wanted to go to New York City for college or go out of state. And unfortunately, it just really wasn't in the cards for me financially. So my dad basically said, "Look, you can either go to UNL and be involved in whatever you want to be involved in, or you can go out of state and have a lot more loans and be very limited in what you're able to do." And so I chose UNL, and I'm really glad I did. I was able to study abroad twice. I went to France for 6 months and China, and so I highly recommend study abroad programs. And I was also able to really kind of lean in and be super involved at the University of Nebraska. So I majored in fashion. I'm married to my husband, Kyle, and I have a little 1-year-old daughter named Sonoma. It's been quite a fun journey becoming a mom. I've learned a lot about myself. We actually own Airbnbs, as a fun fact, in Austin and Chicago, and are looking to expand that part of our business. And just a little bit about how I spend my time. My faith is super important to me. I love spending time with my daughter, being active, reading, snowboarding. So that's just a little bit about who I am. So my career, I mentioned that I majored in fashion design, and thought for the longest time that I wanted to go into fashion, move to New York City. And I quickly realized that I wasn't able to financially be supported by my family. And so that was not going to work to move to New York City and get paid nothing. So I started to actually I started a job in sales where I was selling heavy machinery. So I was literally going to like big Caterpillar dealerships and selling ad spaces for heavy machinery equipment. And so what I learned while taking that job was a little bit rough, because I was like, I want to work in this boutique forever,
Sure.
where I spent all of my money on clothes. I
Totally.
decided that it was going to be the best thing to get a job where I was able to really just kind of learn about something besides fashion. So that's where I really fell in love with sales. And one of the things I would highly recommend everyone do is take the Gallup Strengths Finder. So what I realized were my top strengths were communication, woo, which basically means the ability to sort of connect with somebody, and the desire to connect with the people that you meet, an achiever, arranger, and competition. And so really, when you look at those strengths, they're very much tied to an individual who's highly motivated by achievement and highly motivated by competition, which is really sales, right? You have quotas, you're constantly competing to win the business. And so, and then communication, I'm talking to people all day. And so really realized I loved that. And so when I was looking to apply for jobs after my UNL, after I graduated, I really just shot for the sky. I was like, I'm not going to limit myself. I know I'm in Nebraska, but I just went for it. So I applied at Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, you name it. I applied to it, and I was able to just be blessed with going through the process with Microsoft. And I'll share a little bit about that later. But what I do today is I'm in enterprise sales, and I've been at Microsoft for almost a decade. have had the opportunity to lead several different accounts from very large states like the state of Michigan to Kraft Heinz, which many of you have probably heard of. And now I actually manage our partnership with Berkshire Hathaway. And then after that, I realized because I was so focused on fashion throughout my whole undergrad that a lot of the business acumen I wasn't super familiar with. So I decided to go get my MBA at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. And that's been just really fun to learn and stretch myself because I'm not super, it doesn't come easy to me to do things like finance and accounting and even math, right? Those are things that just haven't always been super easy to me like fashion design was. And so it's definitely was a fantastic challenge and brought me out of my comfort zone, and it's made me better at my job, right? And I think what I learned was it's okay to not be the smartest person in the room, right? That is very much how we grow, and that growth mindset of facing things that you don't know is really what's helped me in my career. So yeah, while my career has been amazing and a lot of fun, there's been challenges. And so I wanted to share a little bit about those today. So there's many times where I've been the only female in the room, which is always challenging, right? To be the youngest person, the least experienced, the lowest paid person, and a female in the room. And so those are things that have led me to some times where I maybe didn't speak up when I should have, or didn't feel like I belonged. And then top that off with micromanagers who are constantly telling you what to do and kind of making you feel like maybe you're not doing things right and you're a failure. And that has led me to, anxiety. It's led me to not resting enough and ultimately like working so much. And so while I say, I've overcome a lot of that, I just want to point out the fact that it is hard, and I want to talk a little bit about what I did to really face these challenges head on, because we're all going to face challenges in our career, whether you're a woman or not, and it doesn't matter how smart you are or where you came from or how connected you are. There's going to be hard days, and so I think it's really important to have tools in your tool belt for how to address those tough days. So for me, this kind of comes down to my mission, and I write these out and I have them on like a sticky note on my desk. And I really believe in, it's not this simple, but these 3 words have helped me really stay focused. And so the first is empathy. And what that means to me is that we can never judge where people are at. So when we're dealing with difficult people in our career, it's really important to have empathy, because you just never know what's happening. And I'll tell you that some of the most challenging relationships I've had in my career have turned out to be where the other person was going through a really, really hard life situation. And I think having that empathy for people, even when they're mistreating you, or even when they're not helping you, or even when they're not doing their job, or whatever the situation is, it's really important to lead with empathy, because there's a couple of things. First of all, you don't know what they're going through. And second of all, you just never know who you're going to be working for. So I will tell you, at Microsoft, I've had several people that have been on my team that I've ended up working for. I've had people where I've had to somehow manage them too. And it's just really important to keep those relationships and constantly have that empathetic mindset towards others, because we just can't pass judgment on where people are coming from. The second is enthusiasm. So we spend more time at work than we do at home, right? And so it's really important to have fun at work and to enjoy what you're doing. And I know that that's not always easy, but figuring out what part of your work you enjoy and having enthusiasm with that, and having fun with your team, right? Because we have just such a short time, right, in this world. And so it's super important to just bring that enthusiasm. And what I have always prided myself on is I may not be the smartest person in the room. I may not always know what I'm doing. I may be the youngest, but I'm always going to have the best attitude. And so that, I think, has really helped me in my career. And people see me as someone who's fun to work with, and someone who's who they want to work with, because I have that enthusiasm. And so I think that's really important, to bring the positivity and be the person you want to be at work. And the last thing that has really just helped me is striving for excellence. And I will tell you that striving for excellence means that sometimes we have to face our failures. And so as an achiever and as like an Enneagram 3 person who just really wants to, really achieve, that's really hard, but you're not going to get to excellence if you don't face the parts of your life that need to be fixed or that need to get better. And so really where I've learned, but what I've learned about excellence is that it does require taking hard feedback, and it does require looking at places that you can improve upon. And so I think that's really important to remember throughout your career. Some of the hardest feedback I've ever gotten has been pivotal moments in my career that has accelerated me to learning something new or to growing in whatever I'm doing at that time.
Oh yeah.
And then I wanted to just share this quote around from Adam Grant, because we talk a lot about imposter syndrome. And I think for a long time, I thought imposter syndrome was different than it is. So questioning your abilities does not mean imposter syndrome. It's extremely normal to question your abilities, especially when you're taking something new on. And actually not having that doubt actually means that you could be more arrogant than you think. That humility that comes from not knowing what you're doing, is actually a really good thing. And so when we don't feel like we're super confident in something, or we have questions or we're not sure, that's actually a reminder that we have something to learn, and it's an opportunity. And so this quote has really helped me in my career, to make sure that I'm not focused on what I don't know. I'm focused on how can I actually learn something new today.
Of course, yeah.
And then just the last couple of things. So I mentioned anxiety. So I wanted to just share some tips that have helped me in dealing with anxiety, especially in the workplace. And again, I think I just want to disclaim that everyone has their own journey with anxiety. And so I want to, encourage you to find your own path and get the right people in your life. But this is just what has helped me. I mentioned some of the challenges I've had at work. Also, even personally, I lost my mom in 2018, actually to suicide. And so that was a really hard thing to deal with. And I think for a long time, I kind of felt like, well, anxiety is just who I am. And I realized very quickly that that is absolutely not true. And I just want to speak to whoever out there is dealing with anxiety or depression or just feeling less than, that is not for you. That is not your journey. And that I do believe that you were able to overcome some of these things. And so I just want to encourage you with that. But the biggest thing is just to really take captive the thoughts that that I'm negatively dwelling on. So if I'm going into work like, oh, I'm not good at this, right? Or I don't deserve this promotion, or they're better than me, right? Like taking those thoughts captive and like literally writing them down and ripping them up and saying, no, that's not for me. And replacing that truth with actually, I do belong here, and I am confident in my abilities, and I do think highly of my work. So whatever those negative thoughts are, working on replacing them. And that practice has helped me a lot, because our mindset is so important, especially when we're at work. We have had a lot of training around mindfulness at Microsoft, and a practice we have is to take 7 deep breaths. So I often do that 7 big deep breaths before, and just clearing my mind before a really big call or before a customer meeting, just to like ground myself. Knowing that you have the choice of who's in your life. And so I will say, especially to like young women around that are listening, that sometimes it's hard to like walk away from like bad friendships. I personally remember going through some really hard friendships in middle school that I had to actually like really walk away from. But it's so important to surround yourself from people that you love and who love you. And that starts with, who you're hanging out with, who your friends are. There's so much you can control in the workplace, but what you can control is, really important. So the areas that you are able to control who you spend your time with is really helps. Definitely don't be, I've been seeing a therapist for, I think like 10 years now. So find those mentors, talk to a therapist, talk to people about what's going on, and don't be afraid to share what's really going on in your mind, because sometimes it does take someone else from an outside perspective to help you replace those thoughts. And the last thing I learned, which really helped with COVID, was learning to rest. So I am a big believer that I take 1 full day of the week to completely rest. I allow myself to do whatever I want to do. If I want to spend time with my daughter, I do not open up my laptop. I absolutely, like, I turn my email off my phone, and I just focus on having a day to rest. And I think that's so, so important for all of us. And the last slide here is just some final career advice thoughts. Um, every single time you're in an interview, you always have to ask for the job. Make sure you are always asking for the job. That's actually what how I got the job at Microsoft. So when I was interviewing, everyone I interviewed with, I asked for the job, and I basically said, "Is there anything stopping you from, recommending me for this job?" And actually, one of the guys stood up and gave me a standing ovation because out of all of the college hires, I was the only person that day that had asked for the job. So it's so important to ask for the job.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
I talked about this. Growth mindset is accepting your failure. We all fail, and that is an opportunity. Trust your gut. I learned this very early on. With micromanagers, a lot of times people just want to tell you what to do. And especially if you're young, they're just like, you'll have people that just want to tell you exactly what to do. But like, we all have those gut feelings and those gut things that just kind of say, no, I actually really feel like I have to do this. This is the right thing to do, to always trust that. And the times where I've trusted my gut and the times when I haven't have been very different outcomes. And it's always better when you trust what you think is right. And know who you are, right? Know that you are worthy. You are so worthy to be where you are today, and that you are smart, and that you are kind, and that you're excellent, right? And like knowing those things. And if you have to write those things down on your desk, that will help you be true to who you are, and that will help you in your career. Mental health always comes first. Work hard, prioritize. We have a lot, you're going to get thrown a lot at you in your career. And the most important thing is to learn how to prioritize. Like, it's the worst thing we could do is waste so much of our time doing the wrong things. So having a priority list in all parts of your life is so important. And then the last thing I'll say is my dad actually shared this with me really when I was young. I don't remember when, but so fear, the feeling of fear is, your heart races, you start to kind of sweat, you get nervous, I'm shaky. I always like get a stomach ache or whatever fear is for you. It's actually sometimes the same emotions as excitement. And so if we replace that mindset of like, I'm fearful with actually, I'm so excited. When you get excited, your heart also races. When you get excited, you also like start to sweat and get just excited. And so replacing that fear with excitement has really helped me, especially going into interviews or really big meetings. And fear stands for false evidence appearing real. So it's not actually real. It's something that our brains are telling us is possible, that could happen, when really it's not even worth our time to focus on. So I just encourage you to have fun with your career, and happy to take any questions that you might have, Ruby.
Yeah, absolutely. This is wonderful. I think the way you told your story, it really helps me and a lot of girls listening visualize your journey. I think a lot of girls will be very inspired. I love the way you talk about confidence. I do want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have you had any female role models in your life? And if you have, what has their impact been in your journey?
Oh gosh, yeah, I've had so many female role models in my life. Specifically, one of my mentors at Microsoft, really what I appreciated the most about her was that she encouraged me to go after things that I never thought I had any business going after. And so I
Mhm.
think having someone who's going to encourage you to shoot for the stars, right, and to go after the
Oh
job
yeah.
that you don't think you're worthy is so important. But yeah, at all times of my career, from day one to now, I've always had a female mentor. Every single month, I've had some sort of mentorship call with another woman. I think it's so important, and even if you don't always have a strong like agenda, just having that touch point to say, hey, I just want to check in, like these are some of the things that I'm struggling with, even if
For
it's five
sure.
minutes, but just having that person in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so helpful and so supportive when you have someone to talk to really just kind of guide you in the right direction. We have so much going on in our lives these days that we kind of need
Yeah.
that time to think about what really we need to be doing. So, and then one last question: why do you think it's important for the younger generations, just like your daughter, to have female role models like yourself? Why do you think that's what we need to be doing in the future?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we all can't afford to go through life alone, right? We can't. I will kind of shared my journey with anxiety. I spent probably 6 to 7 years of my career just like grappled with anxiety. Like I would lose sleep. I was unable to, like, sometimes I would get so nervous going into customer meetings, and
Oh yeah.
I was having like chest pain and all of that. And I think that
Mhm.
having those female role models were able to like get me out of that, and help me with those like replacing those negative thoughts with the positive thoughts. And so that's just my journey, but all of us are going to have struggles, right? And so having someone you can talk to about those struggles is going to help accelerate your career, but also it's going to help you just enjoy your life so much more. And so I think
Mhm.
that's so important to have female role models. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, your advice. I'll remember the 4 E's from now on for sure. I think it's so meaningful and valuable. But thank you so much for sharing your story,
Yeah,
Brittany. I
absolutely.
hope everyone was inspired. I definitely was. There's so much value to take away from your story. I think what you've gone through, and I think the most important part is how you've recovered and how you've grown from it. I think
Hmm.
that's really what a journey means. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.